What is up, guys? Rick Hackus here, and this is Destiny Multiplayer is Unbalanced because the Thorn is overpowered Part 2. Now, I felt I owed you guys a Part 2 simply to clarify my explanation, clarify my point a little bit more, and as well reply to the most common themes I am seeing in the comment section of the first video. Now, firstly, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you guys. That video became more popular than I could have ever imagined, and I'm so happy that you guys, shared it and sent it to your friends, and we got the word out. Honestly, after that video started to get popular, Planet Destiny did their own thing on whether the Thorn was overpowered. Like, we really got some momentum going, so hopefully we will actually see some changes coming in from Bungie. So a huge shout out to everyone who helped spread the word around with that video. But this is the video where, again, I'm going to respond to a lot of the comments I've been getting. So if you still have friends holding out and saying the Thorn is totally balanced, this is the video you should send them. Now, first off, I wanted to clarify my point, and I want to start off by saying the worst thing Bungie can possibly do is nerf the Thorn. And yes, that's going to sound a little bit weird, especially if you haven't watched the first video, but I am extremely afraid of everyone just complaining about Thorn, and then Bungie nerfs the Thorn to shit and says, okay guys, multiplayer fixed. Because the Thorn is simply the tip of the iceberg that is unbalanced Crucible. My position is, and was in the last video, I know a lot of people didn't even make it through the first few minutes before they already started to comment, but again, my position is, I believe that the Thorn and the few guns that compete with the Thorn, like the Hawkmoon, like the Last Word, Messenger, Red Death, are all overpowered when compared to the rest of the playing field, just talking about legendaries and other exotics. You shouldn't have the Thorn and then a handful of guns that can barely compete with it. That simply doesn't make for a healthy multiplayer. There should certainly be a little bit more variety than that. The fact that you really only see 5 or 6 guns ever show up in Trials of Osiris as primaries is proof to what I'm saying. However, my idea was, instead of just blatantly nerfing the Thorn, we could buff some of the other guns to compete with the Thorn. Like auto rifles is the best example, a lot of scout rifles could use some fire rate buffs for sure, and fusion rifles could probably use a buff to compete with the absolutely bonkers shotguns. That being said, I certainly wouldn't mind a small nerf to the Thorn. I think the best example is that the Thorn is a consistent 2-shot headshot kill. That's a little insane, especially when you consider the Thorn has faster fire rate than the average hand cannon. Stuff like the Fatebringer and the 6 Drag Pride and the Her Mercy, those all have the same rate of fire and impact. The Thorn's impact is technically less, but because it does the damage over time, obviously it's more, but the fire rate is amongst the highest for hand cannons. Why don't we just lower the fire rate to equal that of the Fatebringer and a lot of the other hand cannons, or lower it even further to Ill Will and Teamer's Lash area? It's pretty clear to me that a gun that has an overall better damage profile than the majority of hand cannons and shoots faster than them is kind of obviously overpowered. And the only reason it was allowed to get to this point is because Bungie does not know how to balance their own multiplayer. And I know a bunch of red flags just went up because that is one of the things I said in the last video, and that got a lot of responses, so let me reply to them. I got a lot of comments from people saying, how dare you question the deities that are Bungie? These are the people that made Halo. You think they don't know how to balance a game? And my response is, yeah, they don't. Because only a few minutes of doing research into businesses would show you that past accomplishments do not translate into future success. Here's an example right off the top of my head, Kodak. Kodak was the premier camera manufacturer only a decade ago. You did not see cameras, you did not think of cameras without thinking of Kodak. Yet they failed to acknowledge a trend into digital cameras, and now they're bankrupt. This was a massive multi-billion-dollar company that went bankrupt, and it doesn't matter that they did well in the past. One other example, Motorola. Again, Motorola has almost zero market share, yet they were the company that first invented the world's first mobile phone. Past accomplishments do not equal future success. Also, it's extremely important to understand that a lot of people that made Halo, that made your favorite games, are still making Halo. A lot of Bungie employees stayed behind with 343 to continue working on Halo. When Activision acquired Bungie, they had, around 150 people that moved over to Activision. Now, they have 400. So the majority of people working at Bungie never touched a Halo game. Just because some of the people working at Bungie right now made Halo and admittedly did a great job, it doesn't mean that they can't possibly make mistakes. It also blows my mind how obsessed and how dependent people are on Bungie. They think that Bungie is some sort of god, again, that it can do no wrong. We have all in our daily lives worked for companies that had shitty managers. You probably know or have friends that have managers that you're like, how did this guy get promoted? This guy's an idiot. He makes wrong decisions. How can massive corporations like, McDonald's, American Apparel, or any of the other companies that your friends or yourself may have worked at, these are, again, massive multinational companies, and they have crappy managers and people making crappy decisions. Why is it impossible for Bungie to have crappy managers or people making crappy decisions? One of the guys in charge of Destiny multiplayer might be some random guy from Activision who's never touched a Halo game, doesn't know what he's doing. He's just in that position because Activision, part of the contractual obligations was that Activision put a lot of its senior executives in top management positions in Bungie to make sure everything's running smoothly. Guess what, guys? That is a very common business practice. So in short, yes, some of the people working at Bungie right now worked on Halo, good for them. It does not mean they can't possibly make mistakes, and they have certainly made a lot of mistakes with Destiny. They have nerfed auto rifles into absolute oblivion, made shotguns so powerful that fusion rifles simply aren't worth using. And I want to delve a little bit more into the shotgun example because, right now, the only shotguns people use are the extremely powerful shotguns like the Party Crasher +1, Matter 64, Fellwinter, Judgment, that stuff. Now, those are capable of extremely long-range one-shot kills. But there's a whole nother group of shotguns, the lower impact, lower range, fast fire rate shotguns. Why does no one use those? Because they are simply not balanced properly. They are completely useless. You'd think, and the proper way to balance them would be that these lower impact shotguns had maybe bigger magazine sizes and also could go fully automatic or could shoot very fast on target with extremely high stability. You should be able to have a shotgun like the Dry Rot, look at a guy, hold the trigger with full auto and go boom boom, look at another try, boom boom boom, and get like 2 kills right away without moving off target. The fast shooting shotguns as they are now, if you try to hold them full auto, you're going to be aiming up in the air. They have a ton of recoil. This doesn't make sense because it makes them completely unbalanced when you have shotguns running around with way higher impact and way further ranges. The way to counteract those shotguns is to say that, alright, you have a one-shot kill potential that is better, but I'm using a shotgun that if you miss that shot, I have 3 follow-up shots, 3 extremely accurate follow-up shots to just crunch into your body. And that's how to balance them. Heck, Call of Duty figured out how to balance, the extremely powerful one-hit shotguns with the fully automatic fast-shooting room-clearing shotguns, and yet Destiny does not have the know-how to do so. And that is the perfect example of what I'm talking about, that Bungie doesn't know how to balance its own game, or at least is making it seem like it doesn't know how to balance its own game. Let's move on to the second most common comment, which was that the Thorn is exotic, and because it's exotic, it should be better than other guns. And in fact, I'm often comparing it to legendaries, saying a lot of these legendaries should be good enough to compete with the Thorn. Those people are technically correct. I mean, the Thorn is certainly worth giving up your exotic slot to, but the argument certainly falls apart when I simply mention some other guns. The best example is the Necrochasm. The Necrochasm is arguably a lot harder to get than the Thorn, and it's exotic, but it's not worth giving up your exotic slot to at all. So if you're going to make the argument that the Thorn is exotic and so should be worth giving up your exotic to, and so should be a little bit better than some of the legendaries, which is a fair argument to make, again, you have to make that same argument. You have to apply that same logic to a lot of the other exotics in the game. But your logic falls apart when I mention Super Good Advice, Invective, Hard Light, Monte Carlo, Soros Regime, Bad Juju, Necrochasm, or any of the other exotic weapons that are never ever seen in competitive play. So if you're okay with the Thorn being as powerful as it is, then logically you better be okay with the other exotics being buffed to match the Thorn's level. Then of course there was a million comments saying I simply wasn't good enough to compete with the Thorn. Get good. If you were good, you could compete with the Thorn. One time I used an auto rifle and I did well with it. I'm going to address all those things. Firstly, again, I'm the one that wants a more competitive multiplayer. This would make it harder on myself. I have a Thorn. Wouldn't logically, if I was only concerned about being good at the game, I would just use the Thorn constantly, which is what you do? But actually, if you think about it, you're the one who should get good. I'm the one who wants it harder on myself. I'm the one who wants other people to have better guns so that they can better compete with me. So if I use a Thorn, I'm not completely dominating. I want it to be harder on myself when I use a Thorn. So you get good. Also, for goodness sakes, no one cares about that one time that you did well with an auto rifle. There is so many factors in you doing well that one round. Maybe you played 6 Down syndrome kids. Did you ever think of that? Like literally it's a possibility. Just because you did well for one or a few rounds with an auto rifle or a fusion rifle or whatever gun I claim to be underpowered does not mean it's suddenly equal. You never see them in competitive play by a wide audience for a reason. There are erratic examples where against a certain enemy, if you have a certain connection or if they have a certain connection, or if there's some sort of reason, or if you're an extremely talented player, you can make an underpowered gun work, but the vast majority of times it's going to be underpowered. Now the last thing I'm going to address is people were responding to my point and saying, well, if you want to buff every single gun, you're just going to create a Call of Duty time to kill. Now the best part of that argument was it was said by Thorn supporters, people who don't want the Thorn to be touched. And it's great because I'm about to use their own logic and absolutely rip their argument apart, and here's how I'm going to do it. Let's just look at their argument. They're saying that, my point of saying that I want to buff other guns to the Thorn's level so that they can properly compete with the Thorn. And that would create a Call of Duty-esque time to kill that would lower the skill level that required to kill people, etc. Now, if you simply think about it, what they're saying then is that the Thorn is already so ridiculous that it's at a Call of Duty time to kill level. Literally, that's what they're saying, because I'm saying I want to buff the other guns in order to compete with the Thorn, and they're saying that, well, that would create a Call of Duty level time to kill. Well, then that means that the Thorn is already at a Call of Duty time to kill. It's simple logic. So you kind of screwed yourself on that one, Thorn supporters. You basically just admitted that the Thorn is so ridiculous, it's as if it's a Call of Duty time to kill, and any guns that would be buffed to compete with it would create the entire Crucible into a Call of Duty-esque time to kill. So again, you probably want to think about your arguments a little bit more. Now those are the main arguments that I want to respond to. If I missed something and you're still a Thorn supporter, please leave it in the comment section below so I can respond to your comment accordingly. That's it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. Doing so will let you see Destiny content similar to this. My Twitch channel and Twitter are both linked in the description of this video. So check out my Twitter if you want to get in touch with me, and check out my Twitch if you want to see my ramblings live. Again, I hope you enjoy, and as always, have a good day.
1 minute.